Have you ever wondered if trusting yourself might actually matter more than trusting anybody else? Well, today we're going to dive into why the real secret to trust might actually be about tuning into your own intuition first. I'm Loan, and welcome back to Uncover Your Authenticity. Today I want to share a story that reflects how I view the condition of trust. Some years ago, I met someone at a party who was visiting here from LA. And we just hit it off. We spent a few days together hanging out, and then he went back to LA. A few weeks later, out of the blue, he called me and he said, "Hey, Loan, what would you say if I told you I want to move to Miami?" I told him, "Well, as long as you're not doing it for me, because I just see us as friends, and I don't want you to do something so drastic in hopes of having a relationship." He laughed and he said he just really loved Miami, that he could really see himself living here, and that it just felt like the right place for him. I told him that was awesome. And then he said, "Would I be able to stay with you for a few days when I get there while I look for my own place?" I did pause, I have to say. And then I said, "Well, just for a few days, emphasis on few, because my apartment is very small and I work out of my place." I just wanted him to know and be really clear that I wasn't signing up for a long-term house guest situation. So the day that I was supposed to pick him up from the airport, a friend of mine asked me, "Loan, do you really trust this guy? You barely even know him." And my response, it reflected how I see life. I said, "It's not necessarily him that I trust. What I trust is my intuition. I trust life. I trust that the universe will bring me the perfect experience for both our growth. Whether it's pleasant or difficult, easy or challenging, it'll be exactly what it needs to be." So often, when we say we trust someone, what we really mean is that we're handing them a responsibility to never betray us, to always be honest, to act in ways that won't hurt us. Without realizing it, we place the entire burden of trust on the other person's behavior instead of seeing that true trust begins inside of us. When we make someone else the keeper of our trust, what we're really doing is trying to feel safe through their actions. But the truth is, no one can carry that for us. People are human. They change, they falter, they see life through their own filters and wounds. If our sense of safety depends on their consistency, we'll always be on shaky ground. Real trust isn't about predicting what someone will do. It's about knowing that whatever happens, we can stay centered. We can respond with clarity, and we can handle the outcomes with grace. It's about trusting ourselves, our intuition, our discernment, and even our ability to heal if things don't go as we hoped. That's what makes trust empowering instead of fragile. When we shift from "can I trust them" to "can I trust myself" with whatever unfolds, we reclaim our power. We stop making trust a contract we expect others to keep and start living it as a state of inner alignment. And from that place, we naturally attract people who meet us in that same vibration of authenticity. In a world where we see people so easily fall into blaming others for not following through, for disappointing them, for not meeting expectations, it's easy to get caught up in that same pattern ourselves. We start believing that our sense of trust depends on how consistently others behave. But that kind of trust is fragile. It lives outside of us. It depends on the weather of someone else's moods, choices, or limitations. And when they inevitably fall short, because everyone does, we feel betrayed, not just by them, but by the illusion that they were supposed to be the guardians of our peace. When we expect others to maintain our feeling of safety and trust, we unknowingly hand over our emotional power. And every time they don't act the way we hoped, our sense of security wobbles. But the truth is, our peace was never meant to be outsourced. Instead of asking, can I trust them to never hurt me? The real question becomes, can I trust myself to stay open even when things don't go the way I expected? That's the shift from conditional trust to authentic trust. One that's rooted in self-awareness, not control. Another thing that happens is that when we first feel excited about a new friendship or relationship, we often don't want to see the red flags that might eventually disappoint us. There's that initial spark, the excitement, the connection, the hope. And it feels so good that our mind almost chooses not to notice what doesn't fit the picture we want to see. It's not that we're blind, it's that part of us prefers the comfort of possibility over the discomfort of truth. We unconsciously protect the fantasy because it feels safer than facing the uncertainty that comes with awareness. But later, when the relationship becomes difficult, we look back and realize all the signs were there. And if we're honest, if we're conscious enough to bring attention and responsibility to our part in it, we see it wasn't just about the other person's behavior. It was also about the places where we abandoned our intuition in order to keep the dream alive. That realization can be humbling, but it's also empowering because it's in that moment when we take responsibility for what we chose to not see that we begin to rebuild trust in ourselves. Real trust isn't just about others keeping their word. It's about us staying true to our inner knowing, even when it challenges what we want to believe. So when we talk about trust, it's not just about whether someone else is trustworthy. It's about whether we're trustworthy to ourselves. Whether we listen when our intuition whispers. Whether we honor what we sense, even if it's inconvenient or uncomfortable. Because every time we ignore those quiet inner signals, every time we override them to keep the peace or to hold on to a version of the story we want to believe, we weaken that inner bond. And every time we choose to listen, to act in alignment with our own awareness, that bond grows stronger. That's what real trust looks like. It's not a promise someone else keeps. It's a relationship we build with our own clarity. It's the steady voice inside that says, even if things change, even if someone lets me down, I'll still be okay because I can trust myself to handle what comes. When trust returns to its rightful place within us, we stop living in fear of being disappointed. We stop overanalyzing other people's actions or waiting for them to prove themselves. Instead, we move through life with a quiet confidence, open yet discerning, connected and centered. And that's a space where real relationships begin to thrive, not from dependency or expectation, but from mutual authenticity. So in the end, that first experience turned out just fine. He ended up staying for about a week, and during that time, he met a girl who lived in my building. The two of them became friends, and before I knew it, they decided to become roommates. Everything worked itself out beautifully. I only had a house guest for a week, and he found a place that felt right for him. It was one of those moments that reminded me of why I trust life the way I do. When we follow our intuition and stay aligned with our own truth, things tend to unfold in ways we couldn't have planned, and yet somehow feel perfectly orchestrated. That experience reaffirms something deep for me, that trusting myself and trusting life doesn't mean everything will go exactly as I imagined. It means that whatever happens will lead to growth, connection, and alignment if I stay true to what I sense inside. Thanks for spending this time with me today. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on where you might be placing trust outside of yourself and how you can bring that trust back home. Remember, the most authentic relationships begin when we trust our own intuition first. I'm Luan, and this is Uncover Your Authenticity. See you next time.